Hi everybody, this is Bastiaan and today we're going to take a look at an opening that I call the bad Chigorin. And the reason why is that this particular opening is used a lot by medium engines that like to develop pieces quickly. And if white plays correctly, he immediately has an edge from the opening. So play starts with d4, d5, knight to f3, and now black plays knight to c6. So we're seeing the knight being developed in front of the pawns. c4. Whenever I see a Chigorin move, I immediately play a Queen's Gambit style of game. So c4 is a reflex, so to speak, to the Chigorin in my games. And black takes. Now, probably best for black is to develop the pawn to e6 and support it. But again, medium engines like to grab the free pawn, especially since there's no immediate danger of recapture. And this is the opening we're going to take a look at. So I've had this played against me time and again by a lot of medium engines. The best way to continue is d5 to attack the knight. And now black has some issues already because the knight can't develop to d4 or e5 because those squares are covered by the knight. Also, he can't move to a5 or b4 simply because a queen check will then grab the free knight. So the knight has to make a humiliating retreat, and only now we play e4. So we're seeing white getting a strong pawn island and an immediate opportunity to recapture the gambit pawn. Typically, black will try to hold on to the pawn to get some advantage. We'll play b5. Now there are a few possibilities for white, but I like to play a4, undermining the defender. And black now plays knight to f6. So this move sequence is so common that it happens a lot against the Hot Babe chess engine. And in this position, that particular engine likes to continue with c6 to support the pawn, after which take, knight to c3 to attack the pawn and gain a second pawn as well. And of course a6 can be played, but it will lead to knight takes pawn, and the second pawn is compromised as well. Of course the knight cannot be recaptured because rook takes rook. Alternatively, moves like bishop to d7 can be played, and white can just continue to build up the pressure with knight to d4 and bring more and more pieces into the attack. So that's a typical game against the Hot Babe chess engine. But the opponent in this game is another engine called Alex. And Alex doesn't play c6, but instead tries a different approach, which is knight to f6. Knight to f6 tries to counterattack, attacking the pawn on e4. So I take the pawn on b5, allowing black to capture. So black recaptures, and now I can recapture the gambit pawn with bishop takes pawn on c4, coincidentally protecting both pawns. And if you take a look at the position now, I'm having two pieces developed instead of one for black, and I have two pawns developed, and material is equal. So we can see already that white has a huge lead in development, simply because black had to waste moves and retreat pieces. So the game continues with knight to d6. Black tries to attack the bishop, but I simply play b3. So all my pawns are doubled or isolated. Of course, if the knight recaptures the bishop, all those problems will be solved, and I'm going to get a strong pawn island in the center. Black doesn't recapture, plays bishop to g4 instead. I play h3, forcing the bishop to make a decision. Black takes, I recapture. Knight to d7, the only available square for the knight to develop. I castle. Knight to b6. So now black is creating a threat on the bishop with two pieces, but I can simply ignore it and play rook to e1 and continue my own development. And the reason will become obvious in a few moves. Black of course grabs the bishop, and I'm happy he's doing so. I recapture, and it looks like black can recapture the pawn on c4, but it actually isn't so, because if say knight takes pawn, I can play d6, and now black is having some issues. If he tries pawn takes pawn, I can play queen to c6 check, coincidentally also attacking the knight. Queen to d7 is forced. I can grab a free rook, so that doesn't work. If instead knight recaptures, same issue, queen check, queen blocks, free rook. If knight to b6, which allows for knight to d7, but also protects the rook on a8. Again, queen c6 check, queen blocks, and now pawn takes pawn, bishop recaptures, bishop to a3, and we can see that the bishop on e7 is becoming overloaded. Black castles, queen takes queen, knight takes queen, and rook takes bishop, gaining a minor piece. Also attacking the knight with the discovered attack on the pawn. And if rook to d8, we can simply exchange, and white has a winning endgame with a minor piece up. Finally, if black tries queen takes pawn, simply the immediate queen takes rook check will do. So the pawn on c4 cannot be captured. So black plays queen to c8 instead, developing the queen to the diagonals. Knight to d2, which protects the pawn. a6. Now queen to a3. This prevents the capture of the pawn, because if now pawn takes pawn, we get queen takes rook, queen takes queen, and rook takes queen check, which is losing for black. So the queen move prevents the pawn capture. Black plays a5 instead. b6. Again, the pawn cannot be captured. If pawn takes pawn, queen takes knight. Black instead plays queen to d7, protecting the pawn and the knight. c5, attacking the knight. Knight moves to b5, attacking the queen. b7, attacking the rook. Of course, if knight takes queen, pawn takes rook, promotes, check. Queens are exchanged, and black is down a minor piece. And a pawn as well. So, knight takes queen cannot be played. Black plays rook to b8 instead, and now black is threatening to capture the queen on a3. Best would have been queen takes pawn on a5. This wasn't played, after which the queen cannot take on the pawn on d5 because of the attack on the knight on b5. And if rook takes pawn, white can simply fork the rook and the queen. So queen takes pawn would have been best, but instead I play queen to f3, protecting the pawn, which is also a good move. Now, again, rook can't capture the pawn because of the fork. So black plays queen to d8, which will allow the capture of the pawn on b7. So I capture the pawn on a5, rook takes pawn, and the best move at this point would have been d6, but instead I play queen to b3, which isn't bad either, attacking the knight. Queen to b8 to protect the knight. Knight to c4, knight to a7. Now the queen is under attack, but queen to a4, check. And black again has some problems. He cannot play king to d8 because then simply knight to e5 threatens a fork. Also threatens mate. So moving the king is not an option. Black defends with the knight and plays knight to b5, which allows rook to a8, winning the queen. Black plays e6, there's nothing he can do to save the queen. And I'm adding some more insult to black and play c6. So now I can choose to either capture the queen with an exchange or grab a free rook. Black plays king to e7. I grab the rook. Black recaptures. And now I'm going for a king hunt. Rook takes pawn check. Pawn recaptures. Bishop g5 check. Now if king to d7, which wasn't played, rook to d8 is made. King to f7 was played instead. Knight to e5 check. King to g8, so it looks like the king has found some safety. But another sacrifice, rooks take bishop check. King recaptures. Queen to e4 check. King to e8. And queen f7 is mate. So that was a game demonstrating the flaws in a poorly played Chigorin, which happens a lot by medium engines and human players as well. So this is how you deal with it.